Mumbai, India's financial capital, is pouring billions into new highways, train lines, and airports. Yet, every year, the city is still brought to its knees by relentless rains and floods. A new study reveals that severe flooding in Mumbai claimed more than 2,700 lives annually over a decade, while causing economic losses of $1.2 billion each year. Deaths were linked to drowning, electrocution, and disease, with conditions like diarrhea and tuberculosis worsening dramatically during flood seasons. Menaka, we're talking about a mega city, mega money, but it has to do with those mini drains, right? Drainage system that's pretty much stuck in the past.
Yes, and this data that you've pointed out has, shocking as it is, speaks not just to the problems in Mumbai, but across big cities in India. It's a combination of rapid urbanization, poor urban planning, and then, of course, extreme climate events. Interesting to know what the methodology behind this is, but putting numbers to the size of this problem has, which is not frequently done in this country, will hopefully galvanize some official action. Though I have to say, I don't stay very optimistic about that.
Yeah, you got to wonder why, though, right? This is one country that's, committed a lot of resources to even the space program, and you're wondering why they're not making this a priority.
It's an excellent question. I live in India and I don't have a real answer, but I can give you the long version of this. I think it has to do with devolution of power politically. And what has happened is that unfortunately power has coalesced at the center and at state governments, and cities don't have enough empowerment to be able to determine their own futures because they're really cash cows for state governments and central governments. And I feel like that's at the core of the problem, the administration of cities. But, that could take me 3 hours to talk about it, and I don't want to bore you with that. That seems to be the big political problem here.
Menaka, stick around because I want to bring in Archana Patankar, founder of consultancy Green Globe and co-author of the study. Archana, good to have you with us. Is this a lack of political will?
Thank you so much for inviting me on this program. I wouldn't term this only as a problem of political will. I think we have to break this into two parts. One is what the city administration can do, and the other is what the citizens can do to improve the situation. So as far as the city administration is concerned, in the aftermath of 2005, and I'm just talking about Mumbai right now, because our study deals with Mumbai. And we know that it's a very large mega city housing more than 12 million people, with 6 to 7 million people traveling into the city every day for work. And for this, magnitude, we have the city administration, which has been trying to do something as far as flooding is concerned, especially in the aftermath of the 2005 event. 26 July 2005 was a record-breaking event as far as the rainfall is concerned. It's termed as a 1 in 200-year event. And it kind of brought the city to a complete standstill for almost 3 to 4 days in the aftermath of that event. Since then, there have been some infrastructure upgrades which have happened. So, for instance, the city has tried to build an early warning system. We are trying to do the vulnerability mapping for the city. Stormwater drainage upgrades are happening. Flood-proof infrastructure is getting developed. But at the same time, we also need people to follow instructions from the administration, help with the waste management, which is actually something that is, clogging drains. So I think
what you're saying, Archana, is that they have tried, but the measures have not really worked. Why is that, and how do you take it forward? How do you resolve this issue?
Yeah. So one reason is that this is kind of a catching up game because over last 2 decades or so, we find that the rainfall pattern in the city is completely changing. So the intensity of the rainfall, the duration of the rainfall has changed completely. We have more extreme rainfall events happening with more frequency year after year. So even if, your stormwater drainage system has been designed for a particular amount of rainfall to occur over an area over next, say for 15 minutes to half an hour, that design may not be enough considering how the climate change is happening and how the rainfall situation is worsening. Which of course means that we have to keep on upgrading the system.
Yeah.
We have to have these better downscaled climate models which tells us what kind of rainfall pattern are we going to expect in future. And then accordingly, redesign our systems.
Yeah. Did you use another city as a benchmark, Archana, so that you could sort of, compare how Mumbai has coped with this versus, let's say, any other city in India or across the world that may have done a more competent job?
Not for this particular study. For this particular study, we have restricted only to Mumbai. But in my previous studies, I have looked at Mumbai, I have looked at Bangkok, Manila, and tried to compare with what maybe cities in the developed world have done. And we find that it is basically the constant upgradation of infrastructure, which is going to help us to deal with flooding problems. And it's not just constant upgradation of infrastructure, but we need more studies to really tell us what do we expect in future. And this is where maybe some of the, bigger cities with better infrastructure have tried to achieve. And I would also say that in the last 5 to 6 years, you see that even for cities in the developed world, which have a better infrastructure than us, you see that flooding is becoming a chronic problem.
Right.
So which means somewhere the design of those cities also needs to be upgraded.
Archana, until that happens, I'm just wondering what can be done to protect the most vulnerable, the slum dwellers. What's being done currently, and what would you like to see?
Okay. I would say that slum dwellers or informal settlements are a direct result of rapid urbanization. We already have 36% of our population staying in cities, and it's growing. The rate of urbanization is very rapid. So which means more and more people are going to come and try and live on the fringes of the city where, they would not have equal access to sanitation, healthcare, and housing, and so on. Now, we cannot obviously prevent people from coming into cities because they are coming for livelihoods. But what we can do is we can create better infrastructure. We can create the metropolitan areas around the main city where there is better housing for people,
Archana?
there is access to other infrastructure.